So here it is, the full truth about my fitness journey. This is going to be a long one, so grab a coffee, there's a lot to talk about. This video is sponsored by YouTube, more on them later. Just a quick trigger warning, these are some of the things that I'm going to discuss in the video, only briefly, but if these are triggering for you, then maybe skip this one. We're going to start from the beginning. Growing up, I was quite sporty and I grew up on a farm, so I was actually quite strong, having moved like feed bags, running around in fields. I did a lot of active physical stuff. And when I went to school, this progressed. I started to join netball teams, basically any team that would have me, athletics, I was doing running. I love all sports and I took to them really quickly. The only sport I actually didn't do was football, or as you might call it, soccer. I'm just not very coordinated with my feet. But unfortunately, when I got into my late teens, I started to idolise people like Effie from Skins, and I was on the very problematic side of Tumblr that really glorified EDs, and I had one myself since I was about 13. And then in my later teens, I moved away from doing so much sport because I was worried about getting bulky. Back then, being muscular, being strong or being sporty was not seen as like a feminine thing, and I was already really tall, and I've got like I am like big boned. I've got quite pretty thick wrists, like my bones are quite chunky. I've got very broad shoulders and I'm 5'9", so I look quite broad anyway without any muscle at all. So as a teenager, when I wanted a thigh gap and was idolising people like Effie, I just wanted to be smaller and wanted to shrink myself. So sports was not the way forward for that. And I'm so glad that the world has changed a lot since then. I went to uni and I did art, and I started to become very mentally unwell. I also started binge drinking and eating. I was in my ED, but more on the binging side. I was using food to compensate for the emotions that I was feeling, and also alcohol as a way to numb those feelings. I was overweight, but I had no muscle and I was very unhealthy, and I didn't do any physical activity other than like dancing at a club. This led to a string of horrific events which eventually led to my diagnosis of bipolar disorder. I was at rock bottom, and the mental health team told me that lifestyle changes could have an impact. I was in between trying medication and I was willing to try anything, so I went down this route. And I want to point out, telling somebody to do lifestyle changes, especially when they're severely depressed, is often not very helpful, because people that struggle with depression struggle to get out of bed, they struggle to do a lot of things. But for me, because I have bipolar disorder and my depressive episodes were roughly a week, and then I would go into a bout of mania that would last a couple of weeks to a month, I would end up hyperfixating on exercise. So I had that to my advantage. Even though it's not a great advantage, it definitely did help. I think if I was only struggling with depression, the story would be very different. So I started looking into fitness, and from the start my goals were mental and physical health. Both of those go hand in hand, and it seemed like a great way to work on several things that I was struggling on in my life whilst also trying to recover from this mental illness. First, I started running around the local area, and that was really helping with my emotions actually. I didn't do it for very long, but it was definitely something that got me into it and also helped me realise that maybe running wasn't totally my thing. Even though I did running in school, it was just different, especially being bigger. Running can be a lot harder, especially on your joints, and I had no real muscle mass or strength, so I think I realised I wanted to do something that involved lifting. I then got into weightlifting at my mum's house in a barn with my family, and I found out I was really strong quite quickly because I was quite heavy, and also I had this background, maybe growing up on the farm, of lifting things. I had quite a lot of muscle mass, and also my degree was in materials, so I was doing a lot of like wood and metal work, so I think I was strong from that as well. The first time I tried to max out my deadlift, I hit 90 kilos, which is crazy, and then a couple of months later I hit 150 kilos, and that was literally only a couple of months of strength training. Then shortly after that, a CrossFit gym popped up in my local area. It had just opened and I started doing 6 AM classes. I don't know how I trained that early back then, but I did. I was completely obsessed straight away. It taught me so many different skills: how to Olympic weightlift, gymnastics, how to get better at cardio, skipping, which I'd never been able to do, and I'm now able to do double unders. It's all fully coached, so CrossFit is a really good way into fitness and functional training because you're actively taught how to do each movement, and it's cheaper than paying for like personal training. My mental and physical health improved dramatically over the first couple of years. I ended up being in remission from my bipolar episodes. I was definitely a lot happier and a lot healthier. However, a few years down the line, I started to get really obsessed. I'd lost over 100 pounds and I started to get addicted to weight loss and also overtraining. I was getting constant compliments on my weight loss and how I was better because I was thinner, and how much people liked me more now than they did then. People would be mean about my previous body and say how good it was that I no longer looked like that, how I'd changed my life, and just basically reinforcing the idea that I'm so much better of a person in a thinner body. This reinforced my biggest fears that basically nobody liked me when I was fat and I'm better and more worthy of love as a thin person, which is crazy. I got addicted to the praise, addicted to the weight loss, but I spiraled back into my ED. Having had a couple of years in remission, I was back to square one with it, probably worse than it had ever been actually. I started to do further damage to my body and to my health. Different health implications started to come up, like I lost my period, my digestive system was pretty messed up, I was really low in stuff like sodium and I started fainting. I was doing some serious damage and I was physically not very healthy, and I was mentally obsessed with food and obsessed with still trying to shrink my body. I was constantly body checking, seeking this external validation online, and it got to the point where I was posting before and afters and you could barely tell the difference between the before and the after. But I was trying to lose the most minuscule amounts of fat on my body and trying to cure all the imperfections. Of all the comments that I had got, had reaffirmed how bad those imperfections were, and I needed to eradicate them all. And this is just how my brain works. I'm a very black and white thinker, and I do see now how I fixated on that and just believed it to be complete fact, and then I had to get rid of those things in my body, whereas actually there was nothing wrong with my body. At the time I was also training as a teacher, and then I moved into my first teaching job, which was only working 2 days a week. It was more money than I'd been earning before, and this left me a lot of time to be able to focus on my CrossFit training. And this is when it started to really spiral out of control. I started to do double days, I was training 7 days a week, I really struggled to take rest days, I'd panic if I took even one day off, then I would lose all my progress. I got obsessed with being better at CrossFit and started to tie my ability at CrossFit to my worth. At this point my worth had become my fitness level and how my body looked, and also whether or not if I could do a muscle up. I was also competing a lot, and again kind of seeking external validation by trying to get on podiums, trying to get other people to praise me for my athletic achievements as well as the shape and size of my body. I'd become so addicted to this external validation that I forgot to think about how I felt and whether I was happy or whether I was actually healthy. And I was definitely struggling with depression and all of my mental health a lot more. I was very unhappy in my life, and I almost hadn't realised that I'd slipped into that. I was just trying to check all these boxes and impress everybody else and hope that me doing all those things and ticking the boxes would actually make me happy in the end. But then I was left really confused that my body looked how it was supposed to look. I was doing a lot of exercise and I was doing all of the things I was told, but why was I not happy, and why was I still unhappy with my body? And then a major incident happened in my life that was horrific. I'm not going to go into it, but it caused me severe complex PTSD. I also went on a TV show that actually surfaced that PTSD and got me to report the incident, but in the TV show, which was SAS Who Dares Wins, they starved us, and when I came back I started to massively overeat because I had been starved. I was constantly hungry, and at that point I had also realised that I wanted to recover, so I was just gaining a lot of weight. And then lockdown also happened, and it was the perfect storm. Gyms had closed down, I'd lost access to the sport that I'd loved, and for a while I tried to keep up with doing it from home, but lots of obstacles ended up getting in the way. This was the point where I finally woke up to what had happened. I realised that I'd lost sight of my goal, and that was doing fitness for mental and physical health. I'd got so lost along the way. This was also the time I started to share my story on YouTube, and YouTube is the sponsor for this video. It's become such a safe space for me to talk freely about my journey. It's allowed me to create a representation for bigger athletes in the sport and people that struggle with body image and EDs and mental health, and it's a representation that we really needed and we still need in the fitness industry as a whole. It's allowed me to create space for my version of the body acceptance movement and to help other people accept their bodies, proving that you don't have to look like an athlete to be athletic and fit, and challenging misconceptions about larger bodies. YouTube's long form content allows me to go really in depth with the stories that I want to tell, which you just don't get on other platforms. Here you get the most authentic, real and raw version of me, and I feel so much more connected with you. It enabled me to create a community of like-minded people and receive receiving the comments that I get from others like me, listening to my story and having it resonate with them, that's so invaluable. I'm so overwhelmed by the amount of messages that I get and people telling me that they started functional training because they saw one of my videos. YouTube has given me a way to give back to my audience, and I really felt like I'd made it on YouTube when I was able to leave my teaching job in order to pursue my passion as a content creator and online fitness coach. My videos receive literal millions of views on this platform, and that absolutely blows my mind. I love that YouTube supports their creators and also supports their viewers by helping them find content that they really resonate with, creating communities that can actually better people's lives. If you want to start your own YouTube channel, definitely go for it. So thank you so much to YouTube for sponsoring this video and creating such an incredible platform to connect all of us together. Now back to the story. Lockdown forced me to train less, which made me realise how addicted I'd become to exercise and how much my physical fitness had become tied to my worth. I was terrified of getting worse at CrossFit because I thought that would make me less of a human. Winter of the second lockdown hit and we moved house, and I ended up moving into a garage where we couldn't really Olympic weightlift. It was very, very cold and it became a lot more difficult to train. I was also at a very stressful job as a teacher and my PTSD was at its absolute worst, so training took a massive dive. I gained weight, but I was also recovering from my eating disorder, and I was determined to maintain that recovery and stay in remission. So there was no way I was going to go back into a diet in order to lose the weight that I had gained. I slowly started to repair my relationship with food, but that has taken me a really long time. I was still tracking calories for a long time. Now I'm finally on an intuitive eating journey, but it was baby steps. When gyms opened, I actually moved to a different gym that had more of a weightlifting focus, and I got really into that for a while. We were still doing a bit of CrossFit, but the coach was more into weightlifting. I reduced my days of CrossFit from 5, then down to 4. I focused more on general fitness and physical and mental health, and also enjoyment, instead of trying to get better at CrossFit and beating myself up if I didn't get better. During this time, I started sharing more content and posting the real angles, just posting videos that really showed the parts of my body that I was really insecure about. I couldn't hide the fact that I gained weight, and I was determined to continue to post even though I had gained weight, because I was still fit and healthy and sporty, and I wanted to challenge those misconceptions that these insecurities that we have about our bodies aren't normal. Like, we see loads of bodies like mine in gyms all the time, but we don't see it online. I became my own representation of my body type within sport. I found body neutrality and started to really accept myself. And then in the last year, I started to reduce my sessions with CrossFit even more, down to 2 or 3 days a week. And I've started to explore lots of other things with my training. I'm taking more of an intuitive training approach. I do functional training with my partner. I do a bit of my own programming. I do some home workouts. I go sea swimming. I do some box fit as well as CrossFit. And I really love my training routine at the moment. And no, I'm not the best CrossFitter I could possibly be, but that isn't my goal, and it hasn't been my goal for many years now. And yes, I have gained weight, but that doesn't mean that I am not fit because I'm bigger. My fitness goals were never tied to an aesthetic in the beginning. They were supposed to be about mental and physical health, not morphing my body into a smaller size. And I struggle so much with body dysmorphia anyway. Even if I had those goals now, I know 100% it would spiral out of control. And some days I can't even work out what my body looks like. My perception is so skewed, there is no way I can even trust it. So there is no point in me trying to chase an aesthetic. For me, I just want to be fit, and I want to be able to run around with my future kids. I want to be able to do any sport that I want to turn my hand to, and I just want to enjoy my life. I don't want my brain to be consumed by food or training, and I want to have a life outside of fitness as well. I'm still really fit, and I'm actually way healthier than I was when I was thinner. That's because I'm not sick with an ED anymore, and my mental health is so much better. I know that weightlifting and functional training is going to stay in my life for a really long time because I've learned so many amazing skills and they're so transferable, and it's really easy to throw together a workout. So if you want to start your fitness journey, then definitely consider functional training. If you like this video, you might want to watch this one next, reacting to my most viral video, Health Does Not Equal Size. Thank you for watching, and thank you to YouTube for sponsoring this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye!